Tax revenue has just only reached 608.1 trillion rupiah in July 2020. Gudang Garam confirmed that the airport constructions project in Kediri, East Java is still ongoing. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. And yes, viewers, Finance Minister Sri Mulyani revealed that the tax revenue has just only reached 608.1 trillion rupiah in July 2020. And this figure declined by 14.7% compared to the same period of the previous year.
Finance Minister Sri Mulyani revealed that tax revenue has just only reached 608.1 trillion rupiah in July 2020. This figure is 14.7% lower than the same period in the previous year. She said that the tax revenue consisted of the realization of income tax on oil and gas worth 19.8 trillion rupiah and non-oil taxes worth 582 trillion rupiah. In the same time, she mentioned that value-added tax or VAT contracted by 12% last month. Nevertheless, customs and excise revenues grew positively by 3.7% to 109.1 trillion rupiah in July. Meanwhile, total tax revenue including customs and excise was recorded at 711 trillion rupiah in July 2020. This achievement was minus 12.29% year-on-year. Realizing this condition, the minister said that she would boost new tax revenue sources. One of them is digital tax. However, she emphasized that the withdrawal of this new tax source would not be a burden to the business sector, which is also under pressure due to COVID-19 pandemic. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
As the Attorney General Office building went in flames, the Ministry of Finance estimates that the cost of renovating the building will be around 161 billion rupiah. The cost estimations was made with cooperations with Ministry of Public Work and Housing. The fire burned through the offices of the Attorney General. Fortunately, no victims were reported in this incident, as it happened on weekend. However, it leaves huge mark since the building has burned down and need to be renovated. From the budget side, the cost of renovating Attorney General Office building is not included in 2020 state budget. Even worse, the building doesn't include as a state property either. However, it could be at least included in 2020 draft state budget when discussed with the Indonesian parliament. The Ministry of Finance estimates that the cost of renovating the building will around 161 billion rupiah, and the cost estimations was made with cooperations with Ministry of Public Work and Housing. From all sources for IDX Channel. We love long weekend, and so does Indonesian's railway company. In the past long weekend, the company recorded train passengers volume increase up to 40%. Right after Independence Day, the government has declared last Friday as a collective leave day in addition to Islamic New Year on Thursday to create 4-day weekend. During this long weekend, Indonesia's railway company recorded there was an increase in long-distance train passengers volume. The increase was recorded up to 40% or reached 656,950 passengers, said the Vice President of Public Relations of the company, Johnny Martinez. The figure went higher than weekend period at the beginning of August, which only reached 469,626 passengers. There are several driven factors behind this increase. First of all, there were more trains being operated, and second, no train passengers can do rapid tests in a cheap price as a requirement to use train. Now there are rapid test services at affordable prices at 14 stations. By those reasons, company successfully attracts the public's interest to travel using train again.
PT Kereta Api Indonesia mencatat terjadi lonjakan pelanggan pada masa long weekend libur Hari Kemerdekaan RI dan Tahun Baru Islam kemarin. Pada periode tanggal 14 sampai dengan 23 Agustus 2020 tersebut, kereta api melayani 656.000 pelanggan, baik itu untuk kereta api jarak jauh maupun untuk kereta api lokal. Atau angka ini naik 40% dibanding periode sebelumnya, yaitu hanya 469.000 pelanggan.
The cities such as Jakarta, Surabaya, Bandung, and Purwokerto were most targeted cities by the public on the long weekend. While the peak time was on August 23, 2020, with a total passenger reaching 83,000 passengers for only one day. Jakarta, Ricky Anwardi for IDX Channel. Still regarding previous long weekend, state-owned toll road operator Jasa Marga recorded high car volume departing from Jakarta. The long weekend also prompted Jakarta residents to travel to other cities in the country. State-owned toll road operator Jasa Marga recorded a total of 78,000 cars departing from Jakarta via Cikampek Utara and Kalihurip Utama toll gates just before the long weekend. Head of the Corporate Communications and Community Development Group of Jasa Marga, Dwi Mawan Heru, stated that the number of cars traveling in the eastern directions from Jakarta jumped by 61.8% to reach 78,000 on Wednesdays, as compared to the normal traffic flow. Of the total count of vehicles heading out of Jakarta, 42,500 cars exit Jakarta via Cikampek Utara toll gate, and while 35,000 cars departed via Kalihurip Utama toll gate. From all sources for IDX Channel. Stay tuned on market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Playbox, lebih dari sekedar Smart TV, more powerful. Nikmati lebih dari 5.000 aplikasi Android. 10.000 jam video on demand. Bisa nonton ulang hingga 7 hari ke belakang. Connect Vision Plus sekarang. Nonton dimanapun, kapanpun. Tinggal connect internet hanya 100 ribuan per bulan. Nikmati bonus hingga 1,2 juta rupiah. Playbox, Beyond Smart TV.
Nama saya Devisa Novel, jabatan saat ini di IDX Channel adalah sebagai produser dan sekaligus presenter program yang dibawakan saat ini dengan nama IDX Second Session Closing, terkait juga dengan kondisi capital market Indonesia dan perkembangannya dari waktu ke waktu. Dan saya sangat senang untuk belajar dan berkecimpung di berita ekonomi, khususnya di capital market. bagaimana outlook UMKM di 2020 ini, Pak Leona?
Saya ingin mengajak terutama anak-anak muda bagaimana caranya supaya nantinya ini bisa berkooperasi dengan baik. Dan ini sudah dimulai.
Welcome back to Market Headline. State-owned Enterprises Ministry plans to consolidate the Islamic banking business owned by associations of Indonesian state-owned banks. And the consolidations will be carried out through a merger process in February next year.
State-owned Enterprises Ministry plans to consolidate the Islamic banking business owned by the Association of State-owned Banks. The consolidation will be carried out through a merger process. The minister revealed that one of the objectives of the merger is to unlock potential financing in Indonesia, especially for future infrastructure financing. In early July, State-owned Enterprise Minister Erick Thohir detailed plans to merge the Islamic banks by February next year to provide more options to customers seeking Sharia compliant funding. The state-owned Islamic banks in talks to be merged are Bank BRI Syariah, Bank Syariah Mandiri, and Bank BNI Syariah. Due to the merger plan, the Financial Services Authority Deputy Commissioner for Banking, Teguh Supangkat, said that in late July that the minister had not discussed the merger in depth with the agency. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Government has stated its plan to merge state-owned Islamic banks to unify power and grab high potential in Islamic funding and lending activity. So what are the Islamic banks to be merged and how large is it? So let's go to the next graphic. Here it is. Through the data, we can see that the state-owned Islamic banks in Indonesia, that is beyond the idea of government, that will be merged off. First of all, we can see Mandiri Syariah as the leading of the state-owned Islamic banks in Indonesia. Mandiri Syariah has spun off from its parent company Mandiri by November 1st, 1999, with a total asset that was listed on the financial statement by March 2020 within 114.74 trillion rupiah. And move on to BNI Syariah, which has spinned off from the parent company of BNI from June 19, 2010, not so long ago, by the total asset that was listed on the financial statement by March 2020 that worth 51 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the BRI Syariah, we can see that the spin off went down for January 1st, 2009 with a total asset that is listed on March 2020 by 42 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the BTN Syariah, but still it's a strategic business unit of BTN, not have a spin off first, but within a total asset by March 2020 within 28.79 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at this asset and equity, it will be in the huge number of equity if we merge these four banks together, as the Ministry of State-owned Enterprises wishes on. And by looking at the existing data, we can conclude that the oldest and the largest SOE Islamic bank is Mandiri Syariah. But it doesn't mean that Mandiri Syariah will become a survival bank in the merger, because even though it has the largest asset and has existed for a long time ago, Mandiri Syariah is still not a listed company on Indonesia capital market. In fact, BRI Syariah has a company that listed companies, so it is possible that BRI Syariah will become a survival bank. But however, apart from that, if the merger is successfully executed in February 2021, there will be one Islamic bank with an asset value of more than 200 trillion rupiah, nearly 50% of the total assets of the Islamic banks throughout Indonesia. And so, apart from assets, what about the performance of the state-owned Islamic banks so far? The information is on the next graphic. Here it is. We can see the performance of Indonesia's Islamic SOE banks that I've previously mentioned about. First of all, let's take a look at the leading, which is a Bank Mandiri Syariah. we can see the revenue of the first quarter of 2020 reached nearly 2 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the net profit that was gained by the Mandiri Syariah, it reached 368 billion rupiah. Impressive number. And moving on to the Bank BNI Syariah, we can see the revenue whole in the first quarter of 2020 reached 1 trillion rupiah, but the net profit slightly lower than the Bank Mandiri Syariah's net profit, but still in the quite brilliant performance of 214 billion rupiah. And next, if we take a look at the Bank BRI Syariah, we can see the revenue that was posted by the company reached 960 billion rupiah, with a net profit in the first quarter of 2020 and the 75.15 billion rupiah. And the last one is the Bank BTN with a 584.91 billion rupiah revenue, and also the net profit of 74.8 billion rupiah. And if we take a look and assess from this whole graphic, Bank BTN is the least of the performance, and when we talk about the Indonesian's Islamic SOEs banks, but however Bank Mandiri is the leading one. And the performance of these Islamic banks was still sufficiently maintained in the first quarter of 2020. But however, as the pandemic hit Indonesia, the latest data shows that there were various performance achievements until June 2020. Even BRI Syariah recorded a depressed performance throughout the first semester of 2020. But even so, the General Chairman of Indonesia's Islamic Bank Associations, Tony Absubari, said that the Islamic banks tend to bear less risk during the COVID-19 pandemic when compared to the conventional banks. And from the performance side, we turn to response related to the Islamic bank merger. So let's go to the next graphic. So here it is, we can see several response on the Islamic SOE Bank's merger plan that was planned by the government. First of all, from BRI Syariah, as the compliance director, said that we fully support the plan as long as it is for the good of the economy and Islamic banking industry. And moving on to the statement from Bank Mandiri, the Deputy President Director of Bank Mandiri, which is Sir Harry Gunardi, stated that the aim of shareholders is to build a large bank so it helps Islamic banks to be equal. We stated this will be equal with the conventional banks to penetrate the market. So based on the response, we can see good responses from the main actors of these Islamic SOE banks merger plan. And basically, the management of the state-owned banks supports the government steps regarding the merger of Islamic banks. But at the same time, economic observer Peter Abdullah said that currently the number of Islamic banks is still relatively limited. So rather than conduct a merger, it is better to allow that state-owned Islamic banks to remain competitive and encourage the growth of Islamic bank. While this plan is still reaping pros and cons from various parties, so what are the challenges in this merger plan? So we can go to the next graphic to deep dive more about that. So here it is. We can see we just compiled biggest challenges on Islamic SOE banks merger. First of all, we can take a look by the questions of will the merger automatically increase the market share? The question is quite a bit tricky because according to the data, the latest data of the government stated that the market share of the Islamic banks in Indonesia is only around 6 up to 7% and remains stagnant into the upcoming years. And then the second one is that it needs an additional capital injections to be equivalent even to the book 4 banks. Because, of course, the Islamic banks need more equity assessment capital to be competitive enough with the conventional banks in these terms. And the third one is that market alignment requirements of all merged banks, and this needs a commitment to conduct it. And Islamic finance practitioners Irfan Shauki Baik said that the merger will not automatically increase market share because it does not increase the number of assets. Even after the merger, the performance will be even stronger and would likely penetrate 7 or 8 largest Indonesian banks. He also stated that this merger plan must be reviewed carefully and there is no need to rush in February 2021. It needs a thorough study so that the implementations does not harm Islamic banking as a whole. And viewers, we hope nothing but the best for government plans to conduct it thoroughly and accordingly so that it can support Islamic finance conditions in Indonesia. And viewers, stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back with more news coverage regarding capital market only on market headlines. So stay tuned.
Playbox, lebih dari sekedar Smart TV, more powerful. Nikmati lebih dari 5.000 aplikasi Android. 10.000 jam video on demand. Bisa nonton ulang hingga 7 hari ke belakang. Connect Vision Plus sekarang. Nonton dimanapun, kapanpun. Tinggal connect internet hanya 100 ribuan per bulan. Nikmati bonus hingga 1,2 juta rupiah. Playbox, Beyond Smart TV.
Senang sekali saya David San Oval dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Alhamdulillah baik.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So let's take a look at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. Yes, viewers, earlier today, GCI was open at the level of 5,285.95. And then approaching closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 5,318.66. But then the index was showing strength and it turned again by the second session closing time. As we can see, index was closed at the level of 5,338.89. And in short, JCI went up 1.17%. And next, viewers, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Yes, leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got finance as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 2.01%. And as we can see, trade went up 1.39%, and the leader of the weakening trend, we got infrastructure that went down 0.14%, agriculture that went down 0.08%. And if we take a look at the gainers and losers right now, here are the key highlights for today's trading sessions. BBRI went up 4.4% at 3,800. BBNI went up 3.34%, and BMRI went up 4.17%, and SMGR with the value that went up 6.19%. And meantime, for the top losers of today's trading, we got BRIS with the value that went down 1.37%, and BOGA that went down 1.04%, TOWR with the value that went down 1.42%, and MEDCO with the value that went down 3.48%. And let's take a look at the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So here is through your screen, we can see that rupiah opened at the level of 14,632, but rupiah was also showing strengthening trend again towards US dollar. I was close at the level of 14,663, and in summary, rupiah went up 0.01%. And yes, viewers, Gedung confirmed that the airport constructions project in Kediri, East Java is still ongoing. The company's management mentioned that the fund spent for the airport constructions has reached 2.5 trillion rupiah.
Cigarette manufacturer Gedung confirmed that the airport construction project in Kediri, East Java is still ongoing. But unfortunately, the company is reluctant to explain in detail the progress of the development. Director of Gedung Heru Budiman revealed that the capital expenditure funds that have been disbursed for the construction of Kediri Airport is 2.5 trillion rupiah. As it known, this new airport in Kediri Regency is planned in 3 stages through the government cooperation scheme with business entities with a cooperation period of 50 years. This new airport will accommodate 1.5 million people per year at the beginning of its operation and will develop up to 10 million people per year. From Jakarta, Gilang Praditya for IDX Channel.
Consumer goods company Charan Pokpan Indonesia decided to distribute dividends for shareholders. The total dividend amount reached 1.23 trillion rupiah. The annual general meeting of shareholders, the company mentioned that the cash dividend is equal to 36.54% of its net profit in 2019, or will be 81 rupiah cash dividend per share. For your information, in 2019, the company was able to record net sales at 58 trillion rupiah, or grew by 8.67% year-on-year. While at the same time, the company has succeeded to obtain 3.63 trillion rupiah net profit, or decreased by 20% compared to the net profit realizations in 2018. And yes, viewers, step aside from the market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situations. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic business and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Aktivitas manufaktur China mengalami pertumbuhan tercepat pada Juni 2020 usai pemerintah melonggarkan kebijakan lockdown.
Rata-rata frekuensi harian di Bursa mencapai 469.000 transaksi dan menjadi yang tertinggi di kawasan Asia Tenggara.
Sementara itu, PT Garuda Indonesia Persero Tbk